I grew up in a family where having sons was everything. My parents never tried to hide their disappointment that their firstborn was a girl. My sister Emily faced daily criticism, while I received constant praise simply for being male. Every achievement of hers was minimized. Every small success of mine was celebrated. The contrast was painful to witness, even as a child. Then our grandfather died, leaving behind a $40 million empire. The inheritance bypassed our father completely and went straight to Emily. Suddenly my sister had power, and our parents revealed their true nature in ways that would change our family forever. Growing up in Cedar Falls, Iowa, our family looked picture perfect from the outside. My father, James Wilson, owned the most successful real estate development company in 3 counties. My mother, Martha, was the quintessential supportive wife who organized charity events and maintained our pristine colonial home. They attended church every Sunday and donated generously to community causes. Everyone respected the Wilson family name. Behind closed doors, the reality was entirely different. I was 7 years younger than Emily, so my earliest memories already include the stark difference in how we were treated. While I received endless encouragement, new toys, and quality time with our father, Emily was constantly criticized for her posture, her grades, despite being a straight-A student, and even the way she laughed. A proper young lady doesn't draw attention to herself, our mother would say whenever Emily expressed joy too loudly. I remember being 5 years old and watching Emily win first place in the regional science fair. Instead of congratulating her, our father immediately asked, "Why not perfect scores from all the judges?" When I came in 3rd place in a spelling bee 3 years later, they took the entire family out for ice cream to celebrate my natural intelligence. King will carry on the Wilson legacy, our father would proclaim at family gatherings, while Emily stood silently in the background. The older I got, the more I recognized the injustice. But as a child, I didn't know how to challenge it. Emily was brilliant despite the lack of support. She studied constantly, joined every academic club possible, and graduated as valedictorian of her high school. I still remember her graduation speech about perseverance and believing in yourself when others don't. Our parents sat stone-faced through the entire ceremony. "We've provided for your education so far," our father told Emily that night. "But college is different. Education is wasted on girls who just get married and have children. That money is better invested in King's future." Emily didn't cry. She simply nodded, went to her room, and started researching scholarships. I followed her upstairs later and found her methodically filling out applications. "It's not fair," I said, sitting on her bed. "Life rarely is," she replied without looking up. "But I'm not giving up." Over the next few months, I watched Emily work 2 summer jobs, apply for every scholarship possible, and eventually secure enough financial aid to attend State University. It wasn't her dream school, but it was a path forward. Our parents barely acknowledged her achievement, instead focusing on which prep schools might best position me for an Ivy League future. The guilt I felt for receiving everything Emily was denied followed me throughout my childhood. I started secretly helping her whenever possible, saving my allowance to buy her birthday presents our parents forgot about, calling her regularly once she left for college, defending her accomplishments when our parents dismissed them. As I entered my teenage years, our parents pushed me toward business, sports, and leadership opportunities, while treating Emily like a disappointment despite her academic excellence. During family dinners, they would ignore her updates about Dean's List honors and instead ask me about middle school football games. The summer after my freshman year of high school, I spent 2 weeks visiting Emily at college. Her tiny apartment was spotless but sparse. She worked 3 part-time jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. Yet when I returned home and shared this with our parents, my father simply shrugged. She always did have a chip on her shoulder. She could have had a comfortable life if she'd just accepted her role. Our grandfather Daniel was different. He was our father's father, but they had grown apart over the years due to business disagreements we never fully understood. Grandfather lived in Chicago and rarely visited, but he always sent cards for birthdays and holidays. I later learned many of Emily's never reached her because our parents intercepted them. Everything changed during Emily's college graduation. Our parents refused to attend, claiming an important business conference they couldn't miss. I begged them to reconsider, but they wouldn't budge. I went alone, planning to record the ceremony so Emily would have something to remember the day by. As I sat in the audience watching the procession of graduates, I felt someone sit down beside me. Turning, I found myself face to face with Grandfather Daniel, looking distinguished in a tailored suit despite being in his 70s. "Thought someone from the family should be here," he said simply, patting my shoulder. "Your sister deserves that much." When Emily walked across the stage to receive her diploma, summa cum laude, Grandfather Daniel stood and applauded loudly. After the ceremony, he hugged Emily tightly. "I've been keeping tabs on you," he said. "You've done remarkably well despite the obstacles." That day marked the first major rift in our family. When our parents discovered Grandfather Daniel had attended the graduation, they were furious. "He had no right to go behind our backs," our father fumed. "He's always undermined my authority." "He was just supporting Emily," I argued. "Someone should." The look my father gave me was cold enough to freeze blood. "Be careful where your loyalties lie, King. Family legacy is everything." That night, I realized for the first time that family meant something very different to my parents than it did to me. After graduation, Emily faced the daunting challenge of law school. Despite her exceptional undergraduate performance, our parents remained unmoved. When she announced her acceptance to state law with a partial scholarship, our mother's response was telling. "Wouldn't your time be better spent finding a husband? Legal work is so unfeminine." I was 18 by then, beginning my freshman year at Northwestern University, fully funded by our parents, complete with an apartment and monthly allowance. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Emily's tiny studio apartment near the law school campus could barely fit a bed and desk, while I had a 2-bedroom condo to myself. "You don't need to visit me so often," Emily said during one of my weekend trips to see her. She was preparing ramen noodles her dinner for the 3rd night in a row, I later learned. "Focus on your studies. You've got a great opportunity." "I can't enjoy it knowing how they treat you," I admitted, pulling out the $100 I'd saved from my allowance to give her. Emily initially refused the money. "King, I can't take that. They give it to you for your expenses, and I decide how to spend it," I insisted. "Besides, what are they going to do? Cut me off for helping my sister?" As it turned out, that's exactly what they threatened to do. Somehow, probably by checking my bank withdrawals, our father discovered I was sharing my allowance with Emily. He called me into his home office during Thanksgiving break of my sophomore year. "This stops immediately," he said, sliding my bank statements across his mahogany desk. "Your sister made her choices. She needs to live with the consequences." "What consequences?" I demanded. "Being born female? That's the only thing she did differently than me." His face hardened. "This isn't a debate, King. Either you stop undermining our family values, or your tuition payments stop next semester. Your choice." I left his office shaking with rage but uncertain what to do. Cutting off my financial support would only hurt both of us. I wouldn't be able to help Emily at all if I could barely support myself. I continued sending her smaller amounts, more carefully hidden through cash and gift cards. Meanwhile, Emily struggled through her first year of law school. Beyond the financial strain, the workload was crushing. She regularly studied until 3 in the morning, then woke at 6 for her barista job before classes. "I've never been so tired in my life," she confessed during one of our weekly phone calls. "Sometimes I wonder if they were right, if this is all a waste." "Don't say that," I urged. "You're the strongest person I know, and you're going to be an amazing lawyer." During her second semester, something unexpected happened. Emily found a mentor in Professor Sarah Williams, a constitutional law expert who recognized Emily's exceptional analytical skills. "Professor Williams says I have a natural talent for legal reasoning," Emily told me, her voice brighter than I'd heard in months. "She's recommended me for a research assistant position next year. It doesn't pay much, but it would look great on my resume." That small vote of confidence transformed Emily. She flourished under Professor Williams' guidance, developing expertise in corporate law and eventually securing a summer internship at a small but respected firm in Chicago. It was unpaid, which meant taking on even more debt, but Emily considered it an investment in her future. I continued visiting whenever possible, watching her gradually build a life independent from our parents' influence. Our mother would occasionally call Emily, conversations that always ended with subtle digs about her choices and reminders that it's never too late to change direction. Our father rarely spoke to her at all. Then, during Emily's final year of law school, something mysterious occurred. She received an anonymous financial gift enough to cover her remaining tuition and living expenses. I have no idea where it came from, she told me, bewildered. The law school says it's from an alumni fund for exceptional students, but Professor Williams says she's never heard of such a program. I had my suspicions but kept them to myself. During my occasional visits to Grandfather Daniel in Chicago, he always asked detailed questions about Emily's progress. He never explicitly mentioned financial support, but there was something knowing in his expression when I described her struggles. "Your sister has the true Wilson spirit," he once remarked. "Not the facade your father presents, but the real thing: determination, integrity, intelligence." With the financial pressure eased, Emily excelled even further. She made law review, won a prestigious moot court competition, and graduated in the top 5% of her class. Our parents declined to attend this graduation as well, but by then, Emily had stopped expecting anything from them. Professor Williams helped Emily secure a position at a mid-sized firm specializing in corporate governance, a foot in the door to the career she'd fought so hard to build. For the first time, I saw my sister truly hopeful about her future, no longer just surviving, but beginning to thrive. "I feel like I can finally breathe," she told me during the dinner celebration after her bar exam. "Like I've been underwater for years and finally reached the surface." Neither of us realized that the true tide of change was still approaching, a wave that would overturn everything we thought we knew about our family. I was midway through my senior year at Northwestern when we received the news. Grandfather Daniel had passed away suddenly from a heart attack. Despite the strained relationship, our father immediately took charge of the funeral arrangements, flying to Chicago with our mother to handle everything properly. Emily and I traveled separately, meeting at the airport and sharing a taxi to the hotel near Grandfather's home. "I can't believe he's gone," Emily said quietly as we entered the elegant chapel for the service. "He was the only one who ever really saw me." The funeral was well attended, filled with business associates and friends who spoke warmly of Daniel Wilson's integrity and generosity. Our father sat stoically in the front row, occasionally nodding at acquaintances but showing little emotion. I noticed several people approaching Emily, sharing stories about how her grandfather had spoken proudly of her accomplishments. He kept a newspaper clipping of your law review publication in his desk, one elderly gentleman told her. "Showed it to me just last month." The reading of the will was scheduled for the following day at Grandfather's attorney's office. Our father arrived early, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his confidence unmistakable. Our mother sat beside him, adjusting her pearl necklace repeatedly, a nervous habit I recognized from childhood. Emily and I sat across from them, the mahogany table between us, symbolic of the divide that had grown over the years. Mr. Harrington, Grandfather's attorney for over 30 years, entered precisely at 10 o'clock, carrying a leather portfolio. "Thank you all for coming," he began formally. "I'll keep the preliminaries brief. As you know, we're here to execute the last will and testament of Daniel Robert Wilson." Our father leaned forward slightly, his posture betraying his anticipation. As the eldest son and only child, he clearly expected to inherit the bulk of the estate, the family business, real estate holdings, and substantial investment portfolio that comprised the Wilson fortune. Mr. Harrington adjusted his reading glasses and began to read. The first few minutes covered standard legal language, but then came the bombshell that would reshape our family forever. "To my son, James Wilson, I leave the sum of $1. This token bequest reflects the true value of the relationship he chose to maintain with me and with his own children." The color drained from our father's face. Our mother gasped audibly. "To my grandson, King Wilson, I leave the sum of $100,000, to be held in trust until his 30th birthday or upon completion of a graduate degree, whichever comes first." I felt the weight of my parents' stares but kept my eyes fixed on Mr. Harrington. "And to my granddaughter, Emily Wilson, who has demonstrated the true Wilson spirit of perseverance, integrity, and excellence, despite unconscionable obstacles placed in her path, I leave the remainder of my estate in its entirety, including all shares in Wilson Enterprises, all real estate holdings, and all personal property and financial assets." The silence that followed was absolute. Even Mr. Harrington seemed to pause for effect before continuing. The total value of this bequest is approximately $40 million. Our father erupted from his chair. This is preposterous. It must be contested immediately. He was clearly not of sound mind. Mr. Harrington remained impassive. I anticipated this reaction, James. Your father did as well. He removed a sealed envelope from his portfolio. Daniel instructed me to provide this letter in the event of any protest. He handed the envelope to Emily, who opened it with trembling fingers. At her nod, Mr. Harrington read its contents aloud. To those who would question my decision, my mind is sound, my reasoning clear. I have watched for years as my granddaughter was systematically devalued, discouraged, and denied the support freely given to her brother. Despite this, she has achieved excellence through her own merit and determination. I have watched my son perpetuate a toxic legacy of discrimination that I myself once endorsed but came to deeply regret. This inheritance is not merely about money or property, it is about justice, recognition of true merit, and my hope for a better legacy moving forward. Any legal challenge will trigger the release of extensive documentation I have maintained regarding James Wilson's business practices, tax strategies, and personal conduct over the past 20 years. Consider carefully whether that disclosure serves your interests. Our father's face twisted with rage, then calculation, then a sudden, unsettling shift to solicitous concern. Emily, darling, he began, his voice honeyed in a way I'd never heard him address her before. This must be overwhelming for you. Perhaps we should discuss as a family how best to manage this unexpected situation. Emily sat perfectly still, her expression unreadable. I think we've had enough family discussion for today, she finally said, rising from her chair. Mr. Harrington, I'd appreciate scheduling a proper briefing on my new responsibilities when you have time. The attorney nodded respectfully. Of course, Miss Wilson. My office will contact you tomorrow. As Emily and I left the office, our parents followed. Our mother suddenly full of affection she'd never shown before. Emily, we must have you over for dinner this weekend, she gushed. It's been too long since we've had a proper family meal together. Emily simply nodded and kept walking. In the taxi back to our hotel, she remained silent until we were halfway to our destination. 26 years, she finally said. 26 years of nothing, and now suddenly I'm darling and sweetheart. What are you going to do? I asked. She looked out the window at the Chicago skyline. I honestly have no idea. But whatever it is, I'm going to make grandfather proud. Over the next few weeks, the transformation in our parents was both dramatic and disturbing. Our mother called Emily daily, inviting her to lunches, offering to help her shop for a more professional wardrobe, and reminiscing about family moments that either never happened or had been very different from her rosy retellings. Our father took a more strategic approach, sending detailed proposals for restructuring the family business with a father-daughter leadership team and suggesting regular strategy sessions to bring her up to speed on the company he had never allowed her to be part of. Emily handled it all with remarkable composure, neither rejecting them outright nor accepting their sudden interest at face value. She continued working at her law firm while taking evening meetings with Mr. Harrington and the executive team at Wilson Enterprises to understand her inheritance. Then came another shocking revelation. During a private meeting with Mr. Harrington, Emily discovered a cache of returned mail birthday cards, holiday greetings, and letters from our grandfather to Emily throughout her childhood and college years, all marked return to sender in our mother's handwriting. Your grandfather suspected this was happening, Mr. Harrington explained. It's why he began keeping more discreet tabs on your progress through other channels. This discovery explained so much why Grandfather Daniel had seemed distant during our childhood, why Emily had received so little direct communication from him despite his apparent pride in her accomplishments. Our parents had actively sabotaged that relationship from the beginning. When Emily shared this discovery with me, something shifted in her expression, a hardening I hadn't seen before. They didn't just neglect me, she said quietly. They actively worked to isolate me from anyone who might value me. They stole my relationship with grandfather. That realization marked the end of Emily's passive tolerance of our parents' sudden attention. The real battle for the Wilson legacy was just beginning. With their direct attempts at ingratiation yielding little progress, our parents shifted tactics. The first sign came when our mother showed up at Emily's apartment building late one evening. Mascara streaked down her face. "The bank called today," she sobbed as Emily reluctantly invited her in. "They're threatening foreclosure on the house. Your father is too proud to ask, but we're desperate." Emily, despite years of emotional neglect, wasn't immune to the sight of our mother's apparent distress. She agreed to look into the situation, asking Mr. Harrington to discreetly investigate our parents' financial status. "Their mortgage is fully paid off," he reported back 2 days later. "There is no foreclosure threat whatsoever. They have substantial savings and investments independent of Wilson Enterprises." This was just the beginning. Our father claimed his real estate business was suffering because clients are pulling away since the news of my disinheritance has damaged my reputation. He provided Emily with financial statements showing declining revenues and mounting debts. Emily asked Wilson Enterprises' CFO to review the documents. "These figures have been manipulated," he confirmed. "Based on public records and industry data, his company is actually performing above market average this quarter." Meanwhile, I was caught in the middle. Having graduated from Northwestern, I was working at a management consulting firm in Chicago, maintaining relationships with both Emily and our parents. They began applying pressure, inviting me to dinner without Emily, and speaking in concerned tones about her mental stability and lack of business experience. "She needs guidance, King," our father insisted. "You must help her see reason. The family legacy is at stake." "What exactly do you mean by family legacy?" I asked. "Because from where I stand, the way you treated Emily is a legacy nobody should preserve." He leaned forward, dropping the concerned act. "Be practical. Your sister isn't equipped to run a $40 million enterprise. If you help bring her around to a sensible arrangement, there would naturally be opportunities for you as well." I reported these conversations to Emily, who received the information with disturbing calm. "They're escalating," she noted. "I expected as much." The situation intensified when extended family members began calling Emily with concerns about our parents' welfare. Aunt Susan claimed our mother had developed anxiety so severe she could barely leave the house. Cousin Michael mentioned rumors that our father was drinking heavily due to stress. Each conversation included subtle suggestions that Emily could easily resolve these problems by sharing some of her windfall or bringing her father into the business. I discovered the truth behind these calls when I visited our parents' home unexpectedly one weekend. Far from suffering, they were hosting a dinner party, our mother laughing brightly with friends, our father enjoying his usual single malt scotch in moderation. When they saw me in the doorway, their expressions changed instantly to somber concern. The manipulation extended to their community standing as well. They began making substantial donations to local charities, positioning themselves as victims of unfair treatment, who were nevertheless continuing to support causes we believe in despite our reduced circumstances. The narrative they constructed portrayed Emily as an ungrateful daughter who had somehow engineered their disinheritance. Most disturbing was when I overheard our father on the phone discussing Emily with someone he referred to as Doctor. The conversation included phrases like history of emotional instability and inability to handle pressure and family intervention may be necessary. I decided to search their home office while they were attending a charity function. In the bottom drawer of our father's desk, locked but easily opened with the letter opener I remembered from childhood, I found a folder labeled Family Trust Protection. Inside was correspondence with a law firm specializing in conservatorships and guardianship proceedings, outlining strategies to have Emily declared mentally unfit to manage her inheritance. The documents detailed a plan to gather evidence of Emily's supposed instability, cataloging any emotional reactions to their provocations, recruiting family friends to provide statements about concerning behavior they had supposedly witnessed, and establishing a pattern of erratic decision-making by deliberately creating stressful situations. The final page was a draft petition for emergency conservatorship, with our father named as the proposed conservator, who would assume control of all Emily's assets in her best interest. It only needed evidence to be attached and a filing date to be activated. I photographed every document with shaking hands, then carefully replaced everything exactly as I had found it. That night, I couldn't sleep. the magnitude of their betrayal keeping me awake until dawn. This wasn't just about money anymore. They were planning to legally strip Emily of her autonomy, gaslighting her and manipulating everyone around her to achieve it. The next morning, I drove directly to Emily's apartment. When I showed her the photos, she stared at them for a long time in silence. "I knew they were capable of a lot," she finally said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "But this exceeds even my worst expectations." "What are we going to do?" I asked. Emily looked up, a new resolve forming in her expression. "First, we document everything. Then we prepare. And finally, we end this completely and permanently." What she didn't know yet was that our parents were already setting their plan in motion, organizing what they called a family intervention for the following weekend. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change all of our lives forever. The invitation seemed innocent enough, a family dinner at our parents' home to reconnect and heal. Emily was reluctant to attend, but I convinced her it might provide an opportunity to address the situation directly. What neither of us realized was that our parents had been planning this intervention for weeks, carefully orchestrating every detail. When we arrived, the living room was filled with extended family. Aunt Susan and Uncle Robert, our cousins Michael and Jennifer, and even our elderly great-aunt Lucille, who rarely left her assisted living facility. Our mother greeted Emily with a tearful hug, while our father stood back, projecting concern and gravitas. "We're all here because we love you, Emily." Our mother began once everyone was seated. The formal living room, rarely used during our childhood, felt like a stage set for the performance about to unfold. "We're worried about the pressure you're under," Aunt Susan added, right on cue. Managing such a large inheritance would be challenging for anyone, especially someone without business experience. Uncle Robert nodded sagely. "Your grandfather's decision, while well-intentioned, has placed an unfair burden on you." One by one, each family member delivered their lines, expressing concern about Emily's welfare, suggesting the inheritance was causing her stress, and hinting that allowing our father to help manage the assets would be in everyone's best interest. Emily sat silently through it all, her expression carefully neutral. I could see the subtle signs of her distress, the slight tension in her jaw, the way her knuckles whitened as she clasped her hands, but she remained composed. When everyone had spoken, our father stood, assuming the role of family patriarch. "Emily, we've prepared some papers that would establish a family trust. This would protect the assets while removing the burden of day-to-day management from your shoulders. I would serve as trustee until you feel ready to take on more responsibility." As he reached for the documents on the side table, I knew I couldn't remain silent any longer. "Before we go any further," I interrupted, standing up, "there's something everyone needs to hear." Our father's expression hardened. "King, this isn't the time." "Actually, it's exactly the time." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the Bluetooth speaker sitting on the bookshelf, a setup I had tested earlier while pretending to take a phone call. "What are you doing?" our mother asked, alarm creeping into her voice. "Providing context for this intervention," I replied, pressing play. Our father's voice filled the room, crystal clear. "Emily isn't equipped to handle that kind of responsibility. The family legacy, my legacy, can't be left in her hands." Then my own voice. "So what exactly are you planning to do about it?" "Whatever's necessary," our father's recorded voice continued. "If she won't be reasonable, we have other options. Dr. Mercer believes we have grounds for a conservatorship. With the right documentation of emotional instability, the court would have no choice but to appoint me as conservator." "You're talking about having your own daughter declared incompetent?" my recorded voice asked. "I'm talking about protecting what's mine by right. She's always been emotional, easily overwhelmed. With the right presentation, it's entirely believable that she can't handle the pressure. Once the conservatorship is established, we can redirect the assets properly." The silence in the room was absolute as I stopped the recording. Our mother had gone pale. Aunt Susan's mouth hung open in shock. Even Uncle Robert, our father's steadfast supporter, looked disturbed. Our father recovered first, his face flushing with anger. "This is taken completely out of context. I was only discussing worst-case scenarios if Emily's condition deteriorated." "What condition?" Emily spoke for the first time, her voice steady. "I've never had any condition. except being female in a family that considers that a deficiency. You've always been high-strung, emotional. Our mother interjected quickly. We only want what's best for you. Like intercepting grandfather's letters and gifts throughout my childhood? Emily countered. Like refusing to support my education? Like planning to have me legally stripped of my rights? I produced the folder of documents I had copied from our father's desk. It's all here. The consultation with lawyers specializing in conservatorships, the draft petition, the strategy to gather evidence of Emily's supposed instability. Aunt Susan took the folder, leafing through it with increasing dismay. James, Martha, I don't even have words. You don't understand the pressure we've been under, our mother pleaded. The family business isn't yours, Emily interrupted firmly, and never will be. This meeting is over. As Emily stood to leave, our father made one last desperate attempt. You've always been difficult, always been the problem child. No one will believe you over us. We are respected in this community. Emily turned to face him directly. That recording will be quite believable, as will the documentation of your planned conservatorship, as will the testimony of everyone in this room who just witnessed your true character. Our extended family sat in stunned silence as we walked out. In the car, Emily finally allowed herself to tremble, the full impact of the confrontation hitting her. I knew they didn't love me, she said quietly, but I never understood the depth of their hatred until today. It's not hatred, I replied, though the word felt inadequate. It's something worse. They don't see you as fully human. You're just an obstacle to what they want. Emily nodded slowly. And now they've shown that to everyone. She stared out the window for several minutes before speaking again. This isn't over, King. They won't stop because of one exposure. They'll regroup and try another approach. What do we do now? I asked. We get ahead of them, she answered, a new determination in her voice. No more reactive defense. From now on, we control the narrative. What neither of us realized was how deeply that day's events had affected Emily. Behind her composed exterior, the final confirmation of our parents' willingness to destroy her was taking a psychological toll that would soon become impossible to ignore. The aftermath of the failed intervention was immediate and far-reaching. Aunt Susan called the next day, horrified and apologetic for her unwitting role in our parents' scheme. Uncle Robert, despite his loyalty to our father, was disturbed enough to distance himself from the situation. Even our cousins reached out separately to express their shock. Meanwhile, our parents shifted to damage control, telling family and friends that Emily had misinterpreted their concern and that I had unfortunately been influenced by Emily's paranoia. They claimed the recording was selectively edited and the documents taken out of context. Despite their efforts, the family dynamic had fundamentally changed. The veneer of respectability they had maintained for decades was cracking, revealing the manipulation beneath. Emily, who had always managed to maintain her composure through years of neglect and discrimination, finally reached her breaking point. 2 weeks after the confrontation, I found her in her apartment, surrounded by case files and legal documents, having barely slept for days. I need to understand everything, she explained, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. Every aspect of the business, every legal vulnerability, every financial detail. I can't let them find any weakness. I recognized the signs of severe anxiety and depression that she was trying to hide behind workaholic behavior. Despite her legal training and natural resilience, the psychological impact of such profound betrayal by our parents was overwhelming her. You need help, Em, I said gently. Not because you're unstable, but because anyone would need support after what you've been through. I can't risk seeing a therapist, she argued. They'd use it against me in their conservatorship petition. Actually, I countered, proactively seeking support demonstrates responsible self-care and undermines their narrative. It took considerable persuasion, but Emily eventually agreed to see Dr. Lauren Carter, a psychologist specializing in family trauma who came highly recommended by Professor Williams. Their sessions became a crucial lifeline as Emily processed not just the recent confrontation, but 26 years of systematic emotional abuse. Dr. Carter says what I've experienced is a form of narcissistic family abuse, Emily shared after several weeks of therapy. The golden child, scapegoat dynamic is apparently classic. I always thought I was alone in this. While Emily worked on her psychological healing, our parents escalated their legal approach. They hired Preston and Whitmore, an expensive law firm known for aggressive tactics in inheritance disputes. Their initial strategy was to challenge grandfather Daniel's mental competence when he changed his will, followed by allegations that Emily had exerted undue influence during his final years. Emily responded by bringing in Professor Williams as her personal legal advisor, alongside Mr. Harrington and the corporate counsel for Wilson Enterprises. Together, they assembled a formidable legal team that systematically dismantled each challenge our parents raised. Your grandfather anticipated this, Professor Williams explained during a strategy session. The medical documentation of his mental competence is exhaustive. Multiple independent physicians conducted assessments when he updated his will. The timing of the changes years before his death, not on his deathbed, further strengthens our position. Our parents' lawyers tried a new angle, claiming that our father had been instrumental in building Wilson Enterprises to its current value and deserved compensation for his contributions. This approach gained some traction until Emily's team discovered something unexpected during their research. We found financial audits from 15 years ago, Mr. Harrington explained, spreading documents across Emily's dining table. Your father wasn't just passed over in the will because of how he treated you. He was systematically mismanaging company funds for years. Your grandfather kept detailed records, but chose not to pursue legal action at the time. The audits revealed that our father had diverted company resources to prop up his personal real estate ventures, falsified expense reports, and maintained a shadow accounting system that concealed significant financial improprieties. This is why grandfather and father had a falling out, I realized. Not just business disagreements like we were told. These records could support criminal charges, Professor Williams noted. Embezzlement, fraud, tax evasion. The statute of limitations hasn't expired on many of these actions. Emily stared at the documents, the implications clear. He knew all along that grandfather had evidence against him. That's why he was so desperate to get control of the company, not just for the money, but to bury these records. We now possessed leverage that could completely destroy our parents' legal position and potentially send our father to prison. Emily struggled with the decision about how to use this information. They were willing to have me declared mentally incompetent, she reasoned, during one of our late-night strategy sessions. They stole my relationship with grandfather. They denied me basic support that they freely gave you. They've shown no remorse or recognition of their actions. But, she continued, using this to pursue criminal charges feels like crossing a line I'm not sure I want to cross. After much deliberation and consultation with her therapist, Emily made her decision. I don't want revenge. I want closure. And I want to ensure they can never hurt us again. With her legal team, Emily developed a comprehensive settlement agreement. Our parents would sign legally binding documents renouncing all claims to Wilson Enterprises and Emily's inheritance. They would acknowledge in writing that grandfather Daniel was of sound mind when creating his will. They would agree to cease all disparaging communications about Emily within the family and community. In exchange, Emily would not pursue or support any criminal investigation into the financial improprieties documented in grandfather's records. When Professor Williams presented the settlement to our parents' lawyers, the response was predictable: initial bluster, followed by recognition of their untenable position. Our parents requested a direct meeting with Emily, likely hoping to manipulate her in person. Emily agreed, but with conditions. The meeting took place in the conference room at Wilson Enterprises headquarters, neutral ground that nevertheless symbolized the power shift that had occurred. I attended as moral support, along with Professor Williams and Mr. Harrington. Our parents arrived with their lead attorney, our mother looking tearful, our father maintaining the dignified facade that had served him for decades. We think there's been a misunderstanding, our father began, his tone reasonable. Family disagreements have been blown out of proportion. Emily slid copies of the financial audit documents across the table. Let's not waste time. These speak for themselves. The color drained from our father's face as he recognized the papers. Our mother looked confused, then alarmed as she skimmed the content. Where did you get these? Our father demanded. Grandfather kept meticulous records, Emily replied evenly. He chose not to use them against you during his lifetime. I'm offering you the same consideration, conditionally. She outlined the settlement terms clearly and concisely. When she finished, the room fell silent except for the sound of our mother's quiet weeping. Our father's attorney leaned over to whisper urgently in his ear. After a long moment, our father looked directly at Emily. "You were always stubborn," he said, his tone a mixture of anger and something that might have been reluctant respect. "I never thought you'd go this far. You never thought I'd have the power to stand up to you," Emily corrected him. "That was your mistake." After another whispered conference with his attorney, our father nodded stiffly. "We'll sign your agreement." As the lawyers finalized the details, our mother made one last emotional appeal. "We're still family," she said tearfully. "Surely there's a way back from this." Emily looked at her for a long moment. "You had 26 years to treat me like family. You chose not to. Actions have consequences." The papers were signed that afternoon. As our parents prepared to leave, our father paused at the door. "What will you do with it all?" he asked, gesturing vaguely at the office. "You have no experience running a company." Emily smiled slightly. "I'll do what grandfather believed I could do. Learn, adapt, and build something better than what came before." She held his gaze steadily. "Something you never managed to achieve." They left without another word, walking out of the building and, effectively, out of our lives. The settlement agreement included provisions for minimal, structured contact at major family events, but otherwise created a clean break that protected Emily's interests permanently. As the door closed behind them, Emily exhaled slowly. "It's really over," she said quietly. I put my arm around her shoulders. "Not over, just beginning." In the year that followed the settlement, Emily transformed both her life and Wilson Enterprises. With grandfather Daniel's vision as her guide and her own legal expertise as foundation, she restructured the company with a focus on ethical business practices and employee welfare. Profits increased 20% in the first year under her leadership. "It turns out treating people with respect and paying fair wages actually improves productivity," she remarked during one of our weekly dinners. Who would have thought? My own career had evolved as well. After the confrontation with our parents, I realized corporate consulting wasn't my passion. With Emily's encouragement, I returned to graduate school to pursue a degree in educational psychology, focusing on helping children overcome family trauma, something I understood all too well. Emily supported my career change completely, establishing a trust fund that covered my tuition and living expenses. "Consider it balancing the scales," she said when I initially hesitated to accept. "Besides, grandfather would have approved of your new direction." The settlement agreement kept our parents at arm's length, though we occasionally heard news through extended family. Their standing in the community had diminished as rumors of the dispute circulated. Our father's real estate business remained profitable but never regained its former prominence. They maintained the appearance of success, but the foundation of their social position had been irreparably damaged. 6 months after taking control of Wilson Enterprises, Emily announced her most significant initiative, the Daniel Wilson Foundation for Educational Equity, dedicated to providing scholarships and support for young women pursuing higher education despite family or financial obstacles. The foundation will focus particularly on fields where women remain underrepresented, Emily explained at the launch event. Law, business, STEM, and other areas where systemic barriers persist. The foundation quickly gained national attention, partnering with major universities and corporations to create mentorship programs and internship opportunities. Emily became a respected spokesperson on educational equity, her own story serving as powerful testimony to both the challenges and possibilities. I watched my sister transform from someone who had spent a lifetime being told she wasn't enough into a confident leader whose vision and integrity inspired everyone around her. The emotional scars remained. We both still worked through issues in therapy, but they no longer defined her. Nearly 18 months after the settlement, we received unexpected news. Our parents had requested a meeting. After careful consideration and consultation with her therapist, Emily agreed, though she insisted it take place in Dr. Carter's office with the therapist present. They arrived looking older than I remembered, the strain of the past 2 years evident in their faces. Our mother immediately began crying, reaching for Emily's hand, which my sister carefully kept out of reach. "We've been doing a lot of thinking," Our father began awkwardly, reflecting on past choices. Emily remained silent, waiting. We may not have been. He struggled with the words. As supportive as we could have been. That's quite an understatement, I commented. Our mother dabbed at her tears. We were wrong, Emily. The way we treated you was wrong. We can see that now. Emily studied them carefully. What exactly prompted this revelation? Our father shifted uncomfortably. Does it matter? We're trying to make amends. It matters to me, Emily replied firmly. Is this genuine remorse or another attempt to manipulate the situation? After an uncomfortable silence, our mother admitted the truth. The Andersons' daughter just became partner at her law firm. The Wilsons' daughter just completed her medical residency. Everyone talks about how proud they are of their children's accomplishments. And you realized you could have had that too, Emily concluded, if you hadn't spent my entire life undermining me. Our father nodded reluctantly. We made mistakes. Serious mistakes. Mistakes are accidental, I pointed out. Your actions were deliberate and sustained over decades. Dr. Carter intervened gently. Perhaps we could focus on what you're hoping to achieve with this meeting? Our parents exchanged glances before our father spoke. We'd like to be part of your lives again. To start over, somehow. Emily considered this for a long moment. I appreciate that you've recognized your actions were wrong. That's a start. But trust, once broken so completely, isn't easily rebuilt. She leaned forward, her expression compassionate, but resolute. I don't hate you. I've worked very hard in therapy to release that burden, but I don't trust you, and I don't need you in my life to feel complete or validated. Our mother began crying again. But we're family. Family is about more than biology, Emily replied. It's about consistent love, support, and respect. You taught me that lesson by its absence. In the end, Emily offered a limited, structured relationship, occasional family gatherings with clear boundaries and expectations. No financial discussions. No unsupervised time with any future children. No attempt to rewrite the past. This is the most I can offer right now, she explained. Whether it evolves into something more depends entirely on your behavior moving forward. They accepted these terms, though I could see our father struggling with the role reversal, his daughter setting conditions he had no choice but to accept. As they left, I wasn't convinced their change of heart was completely genuine, but I respected Emily's decision to leave the door slightly open. Why give them any chance at all? I asked afterward. Not for them, Emily explained. For me. Maintaining that level of anger and resentment takes energy I'd rather direct elsewhere. This way, I control the terms of engagement instead of allowing them to control my emotions. 3 years after Grandfather Daniel's death, the Daniel Wilson Foundation held its first scholarship ceremony, awarding full university funding to 20 young women from across the country. Emily invited me to deliver the keynote address, speaking about the impact of family support or its absence on educational achievement. As I looked out at the audience of bright, ambitious young women and their families, I caught sight of Emily in the front row, her expression peaceful and proud. Behind her, in the last row, sat our parents, who had requested permission to attend. They watched silently, perhaps finally understanding what they had nearly destroyed and what had flourished despite them. After the ceremony, Emily unveiled a portrait of Grandfather Daniel in the foundation's main hall, alongside a plaque bearing his favorite quote. Character reveals itself not through words but through consistent action over time. Standing beside my sister, watching her confident interaction with scholarship recipients and business leaders, I reflected on how thoroughly she embodied that principle. Through consistent action, she had transformed injustice into opportunity, not just for herself, but for others following similar paths. He would be so proud of you, I told her as we left the event. Not because of the money or the business success, but because of who you've become despite everything. Emily smiled, linking her arm through mine. Not despite everything, because of everything. Every obstacle they put in my path forced me to become stronger, more determined. I wouldn't wish my childhood on anyone, but I wouldn't change who it helped me become. That evening, we sat on the balcony of her downtown apartment, looking out at the city lights. Emily had recently started dating Michael, a kind and thoughtful civil rights attorney she'd met through the foundation. I was engaged to Sophia, who taught at the same graduate program where I was completing my degree. Both of us were building the supportive, loving relationships we hadn't witnessed growing up. We broke the cycle, Emily said, seeming to read my thoughts. That's what matters most. To breaking cycles, I agreed, raising my glass to hers, and building better ones. The journey from being devalued for her gender to creating a legacy of opportunity and empowerment hadn't been easy or straightforward. The wounds inflicted by our parents would always be part of Emily's story and mine, but they no longer define the narrative. What defines us is not the injustice we experience, but how we respond to it. Emily chose to transform her pain into purpose, her inheritance into impact, and her past into possibility for others. In doing so, she created something our parents had never understood, a legacy based not on control and conformity, but on compassion and courage. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to undermine your success? Or perhaps you've witnessed someone transform adversity into strength like Emily did. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if Emily's journey resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and justice, and share with anyone who might need inspiration to overcome family challenges. Thank you for listening to this story. And remember, your worth isn't determined by those who fail to see it, but by your courage to believe in yourself when others don't.